The spreadsheet on my laptop screen blurred as I rubbed my eyes. Tax season always meant long nights, but having Susan help made it bearable. My sister had offered to organize our financial documents while Jennifer was at her Saturday hospital volunteering shift. Rob, can you explain this? Susan's voice carried an edge of confusion that made me look up from my investment portfolio review. What's up? I rolled my chair over to where she sat at the dining room table, surrounded by bank statements and receipts. She pointed at her screen, showing our joint checking account transactions. These monthly transfers to JPay. They've been going on for 3 years. $1,300 every month like clockwork. JPay? I frowned, leaning closer. Never heard of it. That's what I thought was weird, so I Googled it. Susan turned her laptop toward me. It's a service for sending money to prison inmates. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. I stared at the screen, then back at the transaction history. That has to be a mistake. We don't know anyone in prison. That's what I assumed, but look. She scrolled through month after month of identical transactions. And there are Western Union transfers too. Different amounts, but all going to the same recipient number. My chest tightened. How much total? Susan's fingers flew across the keyboard. Over the past 3 years. Rob, it's almost $50,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. I grabbed the laptop, scrolling through transaction after transaction. Each one came from our joint account, the one Jennifer primarily managed because she handled our household expenses while I focused on investments. There has to be an explanation, I said, though my voice sounded hollow, even to me. Maybe it's some charity program she's involved with through the hospital. For 3 years without mentioning it? Spending 50 grand? Susan's expression was sympathetic but skeptical. Rob, you need to find out what's going on. I pulled out my phone, my fingers hesitating over Jennifer's contact. She'd be in the middle of her volunteering shift. Instead, I opened my banking app and found the JPay transaction details. The recipient was listed only as inmate number 47291, with a Department of Corrections number. I'm calling JPay, I said, already searching for their customer service number. 20 minutes later, I hung up feeling sick. The customer service representative had been professionally unhelpful, citing privacy policies, but confirmed the payments were going to an inmate in the state maximum security facility 40 miles north of the city. Maximum security, Susan repeated when I told her. Rob, those are serious criminals, murderers, rapists. I know what maximum security means, I snapped, then immediately apologized. Sorry, I can't believe Jennifer would what? You don't even know what she's doing yet. Susan squeezed my shoulder. Look, she gets home in 2 hours. Just ask her. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. But as I stared at the transaction history, a reasonable explanation felt increasingly unlikely. My wife had been sending money to a maximum security prisoner for 3 years. $1,300 a month, every month, without fail. Money from our joint account. Money I'd earned through 60-hour weeks managing portfolios. Susan, can you pull up the Western Union transfers, see if there's any pattern? She worked for a few minutes, then showed me a new spreadsheet. They're irregular amounts, but frequent, sometimes twice a week. All electronic transfers to the same recipient code. That's not charity, I said quietly. That's personal. That's someone she knows. Or thinks she knows, Susan said carefully. Rob, have you noticed anything else? Has she been acting different? I thought about it. Jennifer had seemed distracted lately, but I'd attributed it to her finally getting back into her psychology interests after abandoning her graduate thesis years ago. She'd been reading more, spending time on her laptop in the evenings while I worked. The hospital volunteering had started about 3 years ago. Oh God, I breathed, the timeline clicking into place. The volunteering started right when these payments began. You think they're connected? I was already pulling up the hospital's website on my phone, searching for their volunteer programs. St. Mary's has a robust volunteer program, I read aloud, but they don't do anything with prisons. Nothing about rehabilitation or prisoner support. So where does she actually go on Saturdays? The question hung between us like an accusation. I knew the answer before I even formed the thought. The maximum security prison was 40 miles north, a 45-minute drive. The same amount of time it took Jennifer to get to St. Mary's Hospital on the other side of the city. I need to see the visitor logs, I said, standing up abruptly. What visitor logs? The prison. They keep records of everyone who visits. If she's been going there instead of the hospital… Susan closed her laptop. Rob, maybe you should wait and talk to her first. No. The word came out harder than intended. If my wife has been lying to me for 3 years, spending our money on some criminal, I need to know the truth before I confront her. I need evidence. How are you going to get prison visitor logs? They won't just hand them over. I thought for a moment, then grabbed my phone again. Michael Barnes. He's a client, but he's also an attorney. Does mostly civil litigation, but he'll know how to get the information legally. Michael answered on the third ring. Rob, everything okay? It's Saturday. I need your help, I said without preamble. It's personal. Can you meet me at your office? There was a pause. That serious? $50,000 and 3 years of lies serious. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I gathered the bank statements and printed out everything Susan had found. My hands shook as I organized the papers. 3 years. Every Saturday for 3 years, Jennifer had kissed me goodbye, told me she was going to bring comfort to sick children or elderly patients, and instead… Rob, Susan said softly, what if there's an innocent explanation? What if she's helping someone wrongly convicted, or… Then why lie about it? Why hide it for 3 years? Why take $50,000 from our account without telling me? Susan had no answer for that. The drive to Michael's office felt surreal. The familiar streets looked foreign, as if I were seeing them for the first time. How many Saturdays had Jennifer driven past these same buildings on her way to visit a prisoner? How many times had she come home with stories about the children she'd read to, the elderly patients she'd comforted, when she'd actually spent her day in a maximum security prison? Michael was waiting in his office lobby, dressed in jeans and a polo shirt instead of his usual suit. You look terrible, he said by way of greeting. Feel worse? I handed him the folder of bank statements. My wife has been sending money to a prisoner for 3 years. I think she's been visiting him too, lying about volunteer work. Michael whistled low as he flipped through the papers. JPay transactions, Western Union. This is systematic. Come on, let's go to my office. We sat in his conference room while he reviewed everything. Okay, he finally said. I can file a discovery request as part of a potential civil action. If you're considering divorce, I'm not considering anything yet. I just need to know the truth. Fair enough. I can get visitor logs through a subpoena. The prison has to maintain those records, and as your attorney investigating potential financial fraud, I can request them. He pulled out his laptop. The doc number here should tell us exactly which facility and which inmate. He typed for a few minutes, then his expression darkened. Rob, the inmate number corresponds to someone in Black Rock Maximum Security. Inmate Marcus Stone. The name meant nothing to me. Who is he? Michael turned his laptop around. The news article headline read, Marcus Stone sentenced to life for triple murder. My vision tunneled. The room spun slightly. I gripped the edge of the table and forced myself to read. Marcus Stone, convicted 3 years ago of murdering 3 women in particularly brutal fashion. The details were horrific enough that I had to stop reading. This can't be right, I said weakly. Jennifer would never… She's terrified of violence. She can't even watch crime shows. Let me file the paperwork for the visitor logs, Michael said gently. Court opens Monday. I can have the subpoena submitted first thing, expedited for urgent civil matter. We should have the logs by Wednesday at the latest. Wednesday? 4 more days of pretending everything's normal? You could confront her now, but without evidence, she could deny everything. Make up some story about the money being for something else. If she's been lying for 3 years, she's probably got a cover story ready. He was right, but the thought of spending the weekend with Jennifer, sleeping next to her, acting like nothing was wrong while knowing she'd been visiting a serial killer, made me nauseous. There's one more thing, Michael said carefully. If she's been visiting him, there are probably letters. Prisoners and visitors often correspond between visits. She might have them hidden somewhere. Hidden where? We share everything. Same computer, same closet, same… I trailed off, remembering something. She has a P.O. box. Said it was for her online shopping to avoid package theft. When did she get it? I already knew the answer. 3 years ago, Michael made a note. I'll include that in the discovery request. The Postal Service will have rental records, and we can subpoena the box contents if necessary. I drove home in a daze. Susan's car was gone, but she'd left a note. Went home. Call if you need anything. Love you. Jennifer's car wasn't in the driveway yet. I had maybe an hour before she got home. Without really thinking about it, I found myself in our bedroom looking through her things. Not frantically searching, just looking. Her jewelry box with the earrings I'd bought her for our anniversary. The photo album from our honeymoon in Hawaii. The psychology textbooks from her abandoned graduate program. I pulled one of the textbooks out, and a folded paper fell from between the pages. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was a printout of an article. Understanding the Criminal Mind, the Marcus Stone Case Study. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Running late from the hospital. One of my favorite patients had a bad day and needed extra time. Be home soon. Love you. I stared at the message, then at the article in my hands. One of her favorite patients. Extra time. The lies came so easily to her now. 3 years of practice had made her an expert at deception. I refolded the article, placed it back in the textbook, and went downstairs to start dinner. If I was going to survive the next 4 days, I needed to play the part of the unsuspecting husband. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that headline, Triple Murder. Jennifer came home 40 minutes later, looking tired but happy. Sorry I'm late, she said, kissing my cheek. Mrs. Wright was having a rough day. Her family hasn't visited in weeks. That's sad, I managed, stirring the pasta sauce on the stove. I sat with her for an extra hour just talking. She has the most amazing stories about growing up in San Francisco. Jennifer washed her hands at the kitchen sink, chatting about her fictional day with fictional patients while I tried not to scream. How was your day? She asked, getting plates from the cabinet. Did Susan finish helping with the taxes? Yeah, she got a lot done. Found some interesting deductions. Oh, good. Maybe we'll get a nice refund this year. She smiled at me, the same warm smile that had made me fall in love with her 12 years ago. Dinner was torture. Jennifer talked about planning a vacation for our anniversary, maybe back to Hawaii. She mentioned wanting to repaint the guest room. Normal, mundane conversations that felt like mockery now. How could she sit there, planning our future when she'd been betraying me for 3 years? You're quiet tonight, she observed, reaching across the table to touch my hand. Everything okay? Just tired, long week at work. You work too hard. She squeezed my fingers. Maybe you should take a Saturday off. Come volunteer with me sometime. It's really rewarding. The invitation hit me like a slap. Was she really that confident in her deception? Or was this some kind of test? Maybe, I said, pulling my hand back to reach for my water glass. Though I don't know how good I'd be with sick kids. You'd be surprised. Sometimes just being there is enough. Just being there. Like she was just being there for Marcus Stone? That night, I lay awake while Jennifer slept peacefully beside me. Her breathing was deep and even, occasionally murmuring something unintelligible. I wondered if she dreamed about him, about Marcus Stone, the serial killer she'd been visiting every Saturday for 3 years. Sunday was worse. Jennifer suggested we go to the farmer's market, our usual weekend routine when she wasn't volunteering. We walked between the stalls, her hand in mine, buying vegetables and chatting with vendors we'd known for years. She laughed at a joke from the honey seller, debated apple varieties with the orchard owner, acted in every way like the perfect wife. I found myself studying her, looking for signs I'd missed. When had she become such an accomplished liar? Or had she always been one, and I'd just been too trusting to notice? Earth to Rob, Jennifer said, waving a hand in front of my face. I asked if you wanted Brussels sprouts this week. Sure, whatever you want. She frowned slightly. You really are tired. Maybe you should take tomorrow off, rest a bit. Can't. Big meeting with the Davidson portfolio team. Well, don't burn yourself out. She selected the Brussels sprouts and paid the vendor. I need you healthy and happy. Did she? Or did she need me oblivious and funding her prison visits? Monday morning came as a relief. I could bury myself in work, pretend everything was normal with colleagues who had no idea my world was falling apart. Michael texted mid-morning. Subpoena filed, expedited hearing approved for tomorrow. Tuesday's hearing was at 9 a.m. I told Jennifer I had an early client meeting. Another lie. But what was one more on the pile we'd apparently been building for years? The judge approved the subpoena without much question, once Michael explained we were investigating potential financial fraud in a marital asset case. By Wednesday afternoon, Michael called. I have the logs, he said without preamble. You need to come see this. I left work early, telling my assistant I had a headache. Not really a lie. My head had been pounding for days. Michael had the visitor logs spread across his conference table. 3 years of records. Jennifer's name appeared again and again, every Saturday without fail, except for major holidays when the prison was closed to visitors. 153 visits, Michael said quietly. She's been to see Marcus Stone 153 times. I sank into a chair, the number overwhelming me. That was 153 lies about hospital volunteering. 153 Saturdays when I thought my wife was bringing comfort to the sick and elderly. There's more, Michael said, sliding another document across the table. I got the P.O. Box records. She's been receiving mail there, a lot of it. All from the same source. Him. Yeah. Based on the frequency and postmark patterns, they've been corresponding extensively between visits. Can we get the letters? Not without her permission or a court order based on probable cause of criminal activity. Financial fraud might qualify, but it's borderline. Michael paused. Rob, you have enough here to confront her. These logs are undeniable proof. What else did you find out about Stone? Michael pulled up a file on his laptop. He's 35, been in Black Rock for 3 years since his conviction. The murders were brutal. I won't go into details unless you really want them. I don't. He's apparently quite intelligent. IQ of 145. Was working on a psychology PhD before his arrest, which might explain how he connected with Jennifer. She was getting her psychology master's before she dropped out, I said numbly. Said she lost interest, but maybe she found a different interest. Michael's voice was gentle. Rob, there's a phenomenon called hybristophilia. Attraction to dangerous people, particularly criminals. It's more common than you'd think, especially with high-profile killers. You're saying my wife is attracted to a serial killer? I'm saying she's been visiting one every week for 3 years and sending him money. Draw your own conclusions. I stared at the visitor logs, Jennifer's name repeated over and over. The evidence was undeniable, but my brain still struggled to accept it. This was Jennifer, who cried during sad movies, who rescued spiders instead of killing them, who volunteered to read to sick children. Except she didn't volunteer at all. What do I do? I asked, hearing the desperation in my own voice. That depends on what you want. Divorce? Attempting reconciliation? You need to decide before you confront her. How could I reconcile with someone who's been lying to me for 3 years? Who's in love with a serial killer? We don't know she's in love with him, Michael pointed out, though his expression suggested otherwise. She spent $50,000 on him, visited him every week, has a secret P.O. box for his letters. What else would you call it? Michael had no answer for that. I took the visitor logs home, hiding them in my car trunk. Jennifer wouldn't be home for 2 more hours. She had her book club on Wednesday nights. Another lie? Was she really discussing novels with friends, or was that another cover story? I sat in our living room looking at our wedding photos on the mantle. We looked so young, so happy, so in love. When had that changed? When had I become just the funding source for her real relationship? My phone rang. Jennifer. Hey, honey, she said brightly. Book club is running late. Sarah's going through a divorce and needs to talk. I might be another hour or two. Okay, I managed. Take your time. You're the best. Love you. The words stung now. Did she mean them? Had she ever meant them? Or was I just the convenient husband who paid the bills while she pursued her real passion? I couldn't wait any longer. I retrieved the visitor logs from my car and spread them on the dining room table. Then I pulled up Marcus Stone's case on my laptop, forcing myself to read the details I'd avoided before. The 3 women he'd killed had all been young professionals. He'd charmed his way into their lives before revealing his true nature. The prosecutor had called him a master manipulator who could make anyone believe his lies. Was that what he'd done to Jennifer? Manipulated her into believing his innocence? Or was she drawn to him because of his crimes, not in spite of them? The front door opened 2 hours later. Sorry I'm so late, Jennifer called out. Sarah's really going through it with her divorce. She walked into the dining room and froze, seeing the papers spread across the table. What's all this? She asked, though her face had already gone pale. Visitor logs from Black Rock Maximum Security Prison, I said calmly. 153 visits to Marcus Stone over the past 3 years. Every Saturday when you claim to be volunteering at St. Mary's Hospital. Jennifer stood perfectly still for a long moment. Then she moved toward the table, picking up one of the logs with trembling hands. How did you get these? Does it matter? They're real. That's your name, your signature, your driver's license number on the visitor application. She set the paper down carefully. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. Explain how you've been visiting a serial killer for 3 years. Explain the $50,000 you've stolen from our account to send to him. Explain the P.O. box where you receive his letters. Explain why you've been lying to me every single Saturday. I haven't been lying, she said, which was so absurd I actually laughed. You told me you were volunteering at a hospital. You were visiting a maximum security prison. I was helping someone who needs it. That's a form of volunteering. Helping a serial killer? Jennifer, he murdered 3 women. He didn't. The words exploded out of her with surprising force. He's innocent, Rob. He was framed. The evidence was circumstantial, the investigation was botched, and an innocent man is rotting in prison for crimes he didn't commit. I stared at her, genuinely shocked by her vehemence. You really believe that? I know it. I've read every document from his case. I've studied the evidence. The prosecution's timeline doesn't even make sense. Marcus couldn't have been at 2 of the crime scenes when they claimed. Marcus, I repeated. You're on a first-name basis. He's a human being, not a monster. He's a convicted serial killer. He's innocent, Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. You don't know him like I do. He's brilliant and kind and gentle. He's working on appeals, trying to prove his innocence, but the system is against him. He needs support, someone who believes in him. And that someone is you? His married supporter who sends him our money? It's for his legal defense. Appeals are expensive and his family abandoned him. He has no one else. He has you, I said bitterly. His devoted visitor who lies to her husband every week. Jennifer wiped her eyes. I knew you wouldn't understand. That's why I couldn't tell you. You'd react exactly like this, judging without knowing the facts. The facts? The facts are you've been lying to me for 3 years. You've been financially supporting another man with our money. You've been visiting him every week, writing him letters, building a relationship with him behind my back. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Are you in love with him? The question hung in the air. Jennifer's silence was answer enough. Oh my God, I breathed. You're in love with a serial killer. He's not a serial killer. Why won't you listen? Marcus is innocent. He's a good man trapped in a nightmare, and yes, I care about him. He understands me in ways you never have. Understands you? He's using you. This is what he does, Jennifer. He manipulates women, makes them believe his lies, and then what? Kills them? He's in prison, Rob. He can't hurt anyone. All he can do is write letters and talk through glass. He's not manipulating me. We have a genuine connection. A genuine connection. I stood up, unable to sit still any longer. What about our connection? What about our marriage? Our marriage has been dead for years, Jennifer said quietly. You're married to your work. You barely notice I exist except when you need clean shirts or dinner made. So you turned to a convicted murderer for emotional support? I turned to someone who sees me, who values me, who spends hours writing to me about my thoughts and feelings and dreams. From prison. He has nothing but time. Of course he writes to you. You're sending him money and visiting him. You're probably the highlight of his week. You don't understand what we have. You're right, I don't. I don't understand how my wife could fall in love with someone who murdered 3 women. I don't understand how you could lie to me for 3 years. I don't understand how you could steal $50,000 from our account for his legal defense. It's our money. I have a right to spend it. On a serial killer's appeals? Without telling me? That's fraud, Jennifer. That's theft. She lifted her chin defiantly. Then call the police. Have me arrested. But I won't abandon Marcus. He needs me. More than your husband needs you. You don't need me. You need a housekeeper and a social accessory for work functions. Marcus needs someone who believes in his innocence, who's fighting for his freedom. His freedom, I repeated, feeling sick. You want him to get out. Of course I do. He doesn't belong in that place with actual criminals. The irony of her statement would have been funny if it weren't so horrifying. And then what? When your innocent Marcus gets out, what happens to us? Jennifer looked away. I don't know. But she did know. I could see it in her face. She was planning a future with him, had probably been planning it for years. Every Saturday visit, every letter, every dollar sent was an investment in that future. I want you to stop, I said. No more visits, no more letters, no more money. Cut all contact with him immediately. No, Jennifer, I'm your husband. We took vows, and you took those vows seriously, working 60-hour weeks, canceling vacations, missing anniversaries for client dinners. At least Marcus makes me a priority. From prison. Yes, from prison. Even locked in a cell, he treats me better than you do with all your freedom. The argument continued for hours, circular and exhausting. Jennifer insisted on Marcus's innocence. I pointed out the evidence of his guilt. She accused me of emotional neglect. I accused her of deception and betrayal. She said I didn't understand true connection. I said she didn't understand manipulation. Finally, exhausted, I gave her an ultimatum. Choose, him or me. You can't have both. Jennifer stood up slowly. I need time to think. You've had 3 years to think. I need to talk to Marcus about this. The fact that she needed to consult with him about our marriage told me everything. You have until Friday. Either you cut all contact with him and we try counseling, or I file for divorce. She nodded and went upstairs. I slept on the couch, though sleep was a generous term for the fitful dozing I managed. Thursday was surreal. Jennifer went to work at the dental office where she was a hygienist, and I went to my office, both of us pretending everything was normal. But I'd already called Michael, asking him to prepare divorce papers just in case. I also did some more research, Michael told me over the phone. Marcus Stone has quite a history with women pen pals and visitors. Before your wife, there were at least 3 others who were convinced of his innocence, sending money and visiting regularly. What happened to them? They eventually saw through his act and cut contact. One wrote a blog post about how he manipulated her, how he had this whole routine of proclaiming innocence, asking for help with appeals, building emotional intimacy through letters. Your wife is following the exact same pattern. Can I show Jennifer this blog post? I'll email you the link. But Rob, if she's this deep into his manipulation, she might not believe it. She'll think her situation is different, that what they have is real. He was right. When I tried to show Jennifer the blog post that evening, she dismissed it immediately. That woman never understood Marcus. She was just lonely and projecting her fantasies onto him. What we have is completely different. How is it different? She visited him weekly, sent money, believed in his innocence exactly like you. She didn't really know him. I do. Through prison visits and letters? That's not knowing someone, Jennifer. That's knowing the version of themselves they choose to show you. Like you chose to show me the version of a loving, attentive husband before we got married? People change, Rob. Or maybe they just reveal who they really are. The accusation stung because there was some truth in it. I had worked more since getting promoted, had missed some anniversaries. But that didn't justify her affair. And that's what this was, an emotional affair with a convicted killer. Friday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood. Jennifer was already dressed when I woke up, sitting at the kitchen table with coffee. I've made my decision, she said without preamble. I sat down across from her, noting the determination in her eyes and knowing what was coming. I can't abandon him, she said. Marcus needs me. He's facing life in prison for crimes he didn't commit. What kind of person would I be if I turned my back on an innocent man just because it's inconvenient for my marriage? What kind of person are you for choosing a convicted killer over your husband? You're not listening. He's innocent. No, Jennifer, you're not listening. Even if he were innocent, which he's not, you've been lying to me for 3 years. You've been stealing from our account. You've been having an emotional affair. That's what matters here, not his guilt or innocence. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I took the money without asking. But I'm not sorry for helping Marcus, and I won't stop. I stood up. Then we're done. I'll have divorce papers filed by Monday. Jennifer's composure finally cracked. Rob, please. Can't we work something out? Maybe if you met him, understood him. You want me to meet your prison boyfriend? Are you insane? He's not my boyfriend. No. What do you call someone you visit weekly, write love letters to, and plan a future with? She was crying now. It's not like that. We've never even touched. There's always glass between us. Physical glass. But emotionally, you've given him everything you should have given me. You didn't want it. You wanted a perfect house and a perfect wife to show off at company parties. Marcus wants to know my thoughts, my dreams, my fears. Because he's manipulating you. This is what he does. You don't know him. I don't need to know him. I know he murdered 3 women and is serving life in prison. That's all I need to know. I left for work, unable to continue the circular argument. Michael had the divorce papers ready, citing infidelity and financial fraud. The financial fraud was easier to prove. We had the transaction records. The emotional infidelity would require the letters, but the visitor logs were suggestive enough. I've also put a freeze on your joint accounts, Michael advised. She can't send any more money to him without your authorization. Good. What about the visits? You can't legally prevent her from visiting him, but you can use it as evidence of ongoing infidelity in the divorce proceedings. That weekend, Jennifer moved into the guest room. She was furious about the frozen accounts. His appeal deadline is coming up. He needs funds for the filing fees. Then he can get a public defender like every other inmate. Public defenders don't care. They're overworked and underpaid. Marcus needs someone who believes in his innocence. Then maybe his family should help. Oh wait, they all think he's guilty too. They abandoned him when he needed them most. Smart people. The fight escalated from there. Jennifer accused me of being controlling and vindictive. I accused her of being delusional and manipulated. She said I was jealous of the emotional connection she had with Marcus. I said she was too blind to see she was being used. He tells me I'm brilliant, she said through tears. He values my opinions on psychology and philosophy. We discuss books and ideas for hours. He tells you what you want to hear because you're paying for his commissary and phone calls. It's not about the money. Then stop sending it and see if he still writes to you. That's cruel. He has no one else. There's a reason for that, Jennifer. He's a serial killer. Saturday came, and Jennifer prepared for her prison visit as usual. I watched her get ready, choosing her outfit carefully. The prison had strict dress codes, she'd learned. No blue denim, no revealing clothes, no metal underwire and bras. You know what this visit means for our marriage, I said, as she gathered her car keys. I know what Marcus means to me, she replied. I won't abandon an innocent man. Then I'll see you in court. She left without another word. I spent the day at Michael's office going over the divorce strategy. With the evidence of financial fraud, I could potentially recover the $50,000 she'd taken. The emotional affair aspect would help with asset division. She'll probably try to claim the money was charitable giving, Michael warned. But sending money to a specific prisoner isn't tax-deductible charity. It's a gift, and a gift of marital assets without spousal consent is fraud. What about alimony? Given the fraud and infidelity, you have a strong case to avoid paying any. She makes decent money as a hygienist. Not great, but enough to support herself. Not enough to keep funding Marcus's appeals, though. That's her problem, not yours. Jennifer came home that evening glowing with happiness. Marcus sends his regards, she said, as if this were perfectly normal. His regards? How nice. Did you tell him you're getting divorced because of him? I told him you're being unreasonable about our friendship. Friendship? Is that what we're calling it? What would you call it? We can't be lovers through prison glass. You can be emotionally intimate. You can share things with him you don't share with me. You can plan a future together. That's an affair, Jennifer, whether you've touched him or not. She shook her head. You'll never understand. The next few weeks were tense. Jennifer continued her Saturday visits while I met with Michael to finalize the divorce papers. I also started seeing a therapist, Dr. Patricia Mills, who specialized in betrayal trauma. Your wife is exhibiting classic signs of hybristophilia, Dr. Mills explained during our second session. It's a paraphilia where someone is attracted to people who've committed crimes, often violent ones. The danger, the taboo nature of the relationship, the feeling of being special to someone society has rejected, it can be intoxicating for some people. But why? Jennifer's not like that. She's always been gentle, kind. Wouldn't hurt a fly. Sometimes that's exactly the type who falls for this. She might see herself as his savior, the one person who believes in him when the world doesn't. It gives her purpose, makes her feel special and needed in a way that normal life doesn't provide. So our normal life wasn't enough for her? It's not about your life being insufficient. It's about the psychological high she gets from this forbidden relationship. The secrecy, the danger, the intensity of emotions. It's addictive. Can she be helped? Only if she wants to be. Right now, she's convinced of his innocence and the righteousness of her cause. Until she sees through his manipulation, she won't accept help. The divorce papers were filed the following Monday. Jennifer was served at work, which she later said was humiliating and cruel. But I couldn't bring myself to hand them to her personally. She came home that night furious. "You're really doing this? Throwing away 12 years of marriage? You threw it away when you chose a serial killer over me. He's not—" "Stop. Just stop. I don't care if you think he's innocent. You lied to me, stole from me, and are having an emotional affair. Those are facts, regardless of his guilt or innocence. Fine. You want a divorce? You'll get one. But I want my fair share of assets." "Your fair share? You mean beyond the $50,000 you already stole?" "I didn't steal anything. That was marital money I had every right to use. Not for funding a prisoner's appeals without my knowledge or consent." The financial discovery process was enlightening. Michael subpoenaed Jennifer's P.O. box contents with a court order, arguing they were relevant to the financial fraud case. What we found was devastating. Hundreds of letters from Marcus Stone, each one carefully crafted to deepen Jennifer's emotional dependence. He called her his angel, his salvation, his only light in the darkness. He wrote passionate declarations of love, philosophical musings designed to appeal to her intellectual pretensions, and detailed protestations of innocence that painted him as a victim of a corrupt system. "Look at this progression," Michael pointed out, arranging the letters chronologically. He starts with gratitude for her interest in his case, moves to intellectual discussions to establish connection, then gradually introduces romantic elements once she's hooked. It's like a script. Because it is. I found 2 other women who fell for the same pattern with him. The letters are almost identical in structure, just personalized with different details. I showed Jennifer the comparison, laying out letters to her next to letters he'd sent to previous women. The similarities were undeniable. Same phrases, same emotional progression, same manipulation tactics. She stared at them for a long moment, then shook her head. These women didn't understand him like I do. He was still finding himself then. What we have is different. "Jennifer, look at the dates. Some of these were sent while he was writing to you. He was playing multiple women simultaneously." "That's not true. He told me about them. They were just friends, people who contacted him about his case. I'm the only one he loves." Her denial was so complete, so impenetrable, that I finally understood nothing I showed her would change her mind. Marcus Stone had done such a thorough job of manipulation that Jennifer would explain away any evidence of his deception. Dr. Mills wasn't surprised when I told her. She's trauma-bonded to him now. The intensity of the secret relationship, the yes against the world mentality, the emotional highs and lows, it's created a psychological addiction. She literally can't see the truth because it would destroy the fantasy that's become central to her identity. So what do I do? Protect yourself legally and financially, document everything, and accept that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. The divorce proceedings moved forward over the next several months. Jennifer fought the financial fraud claims, but the evidence was overwhelming. The court ordered her to repay the $50,000 from her share of the assets. When the house was sold, most of her portion went to covering that debt. She also fought for alimony, claiming she'd sacrificed her career advancement to support mine. But the evidence of her affair and financial deception undermined her case. The judge denied alimony, noting that her deliberate deception and misuse of marital funds negated any claim to support. Meanwhile, Jennifer continued visiting Marcus every Saturday. She'd moved into a small apartment and taken a second job to fund his appeals. The prison visits were her only joy, she told mutual friends who later reported back to me. The final divorce hearing was on a Thursday, almost 6 months after I discovered the truth. Jennifer looked exhausted, thin, worn down by working 2 jobs and fighting a losing legal battle. Part of me felt sorry for her, but then I remembered the 3 years of lies. "Any final statements?" the judge asked. Jennifer stood up. "I just want to say that I never meant to hurt anyone. I was trying to help an innocent man who the system failed. If that makes me a bad wife, then I guess I'm guilty. But I won't apologize for following my conscience." The judge's expression remained neutral. "Mrs. Fleming, the issue isn't your conscience but your deception and financial fraud. The divorce is granted. Division of assets as previously determined. No alimony awarded." Outside the courthouse, Jennifer approached me one last time. "I hope someday you'll understand. Marcus and I never wanted to hurt you. Marcus doesn't care about me or you. He cares about what you can do for him. You're wrong. When he gets out, he's never getting out, Jennifer. He murdered 3 women. The evidence is overwhelming. Even if he files 100 appeals, he'll die in that prison." "He's innocent," she said, but for the first time I heard a tremor of doubt in her voice. "No, he's not. And deep down, I think you know that. You just can't admit it because then you'd have to face what you've thrown away for a fantasy." She walked away without another word. A year passed. I heard through mutual friends that Jennifer was still visiting Marcus, still funding his appeals, still working 2 jobs to afford it. She'd lost most of her friends, her family was embarrassed by the scandal, and she was increasingly isolated except for her prison visits. Then, one evening, I got a call from Detective Amanda Walsh. "Mr. Fleming, I'm investigating a situation involving Marcus Stone and wanted to ask you some questions about your ex-wife's relationship with him." My stomach dropped. "Is Jennifer okay?" "She's fine, physically. But we've discovered Stone has been running a fraud scheme from prison, using women like your ex-wife to funnel money to associates on the outside. The money wasn't going to appeals at all." I wasn't surprised, but I was curious. "How much did he get from her?" "Over the course of 4 years, including the year since your divorce? Close to $80,000. Jesus, she doesn't have that kind of money. She took out loans, credit cards, personal loans, even borrowed from her 401k. She's financially ruined." Part of me thought she deserved it, but mostly I just felt sad. What happens now? "We're building a case against Stone and his associates. Your ex-wife will be interviewed as a witness, possibly a victim. The emotional manipulation angle might help her avoid charges for unknowingly participating in fraud. Will she cooperate? That remains to be seen. She still insists he's innocent, even of this fraud. Says it's another setup to persecute him." After Detective Walsh hung up, I sat in my apartment, a nice place downtown I'd bought after the divorce, and thought about Jennifer. She'd destroyed our marriage, stolen our money, and thrown away her life for a serial killer who was using her. The revenge I'd wanted through the divorce seemed hollow now compared to what she'd done to herself. Dr. Mills had said something during our last session that stuck with me. "The best revenge against someone who betrayed you is living well while they face the natural consequences of their choices." Jennifer was certainly facing those consequences. Broke, alone, clinging to a delusion that was destroying her life. Meanwhile, I'd recovered financially, started dating a woman who actually valued honesty, and built a life free from lies and manipulation. 6 months later, Detective Walsh called again. "Thought you'd want to know. Marcus Stone was convicted of fraud and conspiracy. 20 years added to his sentence. Also, he's been placed in solitary confinement after they found evidence he was planning to have one of his pen pals murdered for discovering his scheme." Jennifer: "No, another woman who figured out the fraud earlier. Your ex-wife is still convinced he's innocent of everything. She testified as a character witness for him at the trial." Of course she did. The prosecution destroyed her testimony by showing the pattern of manipulation, the fraudulent use of funds, the letters to multiple women. The jury saw right through it. But Jennifer didn't? No, she's actually started a free Marcus Stone website, claiming the fraud conviction is just another injustice. She's the only contributor. I looked up the website that night. It was pathetically amateur, full of passionate but incoherent arguments about Marcus's innocence, conspiracy theories about corrupt prosecutors, and a donation button to fund his appeals. The donation counter showed $47, probably all from Jennifer herself. The contact page listed Jennifer's email and a P.O. box, the same one from before. She was still clinging to the infrastructure of her deception, even after losing everything else. On impulse, I checked her social media. Her Facebook was mostly empty now, friends having unfriended her over the prison scandal. Her last post was a link to an article about wrongful convictions, with her comment, "This happens more than people realize. The system fails innocent people every day. Hashtag justice for Marcus." The 3 reactions were all sad faces. No comments. I closed the laptop and made dinner for my girlfriend, Sarah. We'd met at a legal conference. She was a prosecutor who'd actually heard of the Marcus Stone case. "The woman who testified for him at the fraud trial," she'd said on our first date when I mentioned my connection to the case. "That was your ex-wife?" Man, she was completely delusional. The defense attorney looked embarrassed to put her on the stand. Now, a year into our relationship, Sarah understood why I needed complete honesty, why I verified things that seemed suspicious, why trust was so important to me. She also understood why I'd never again ignore red flags or explain away deception. "Any word from Jennifer?" Sarah asked as we ate. "Not directly, but apparently she started a website to prove Marcus's innocence." Sarah shook her head. "Some people can't admit when they're wrong, even when it costs them everything." She's lost her marriage, her money, her friends, her reputation. What else is there? Her freedom, if she's not careful. These conspiracy types sometimes escalate to illegal activities trying to prove their theories. She was right. A month later, Jennifer was arrested for attempting to smuggle a cell phone into the prison for Marcus. She claimed she was trying to help him document civil rights violations, but the prosecution argued it was part of another fraud scheme Marcus was orchestrating. Jennifer was convicted of attempting to introduce contraband into a correctional facility. The judge, noting her history of deception and continued refusal to acknowledge Marcus Stone's manipulations, sentenced her to 6 months in county jail and 3 years probation with the condition that she have no contact with any incarcerated individuals. I attended the sentencing. Jennifer looked gaunt, her hair gray at the roots, her clothes hanging loose on her frame. When the no-contact order was pronounced, she broke down sobbing. "You can't keep me from him. He needs me. This is cruel and unusual punishment." The judge was unmoved. "Ms. Fleming, the only cruelty here is what you've inflicted on yourself through your obsession with a convicted murderer and fraudster. This no-contact order is for your own protection." As court officers led her away, Jennifer looked at me with hollow eyes. "You did this," she said. "You turned everyone against us." "No, Jennifer. You did this to yourself." She served 4 months of her sentence, getting out early for good behavior. The no-contact order remained in place, monitored by her probation officer. She couldn't write to Marcus, visit him, or communicate with him in any way for 3 years. I heard she got a job at a grocery store. The dental office is no longer willing to employ someone with a record. She lived in a studio apartment in a rough part of town, her life a shadow of what it had been. Meanwhile, I married Sarah in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Susan, my sister, gave a toast about second chances and finding real love after deception. It was beautiful and only slightly pointed. We bought a house in the suburbs, nothing fancy but ours. Sarah's work as a prosecutor meant she understood the darkness that existed in the world, but she chose to build light with me anyway. We were honest with each other about everything: finances, feelings, fears, dreams. No secrets, no lies, no hidden P.O. boxes or mysterious Saturday commitments. 2 years after Jennifer's release, I ran into her at a coffee shop. I almost didn't recognize her. She was thin to the point of gauntness, her clothes threadbare, her hair completely gray now, though she was only 43. "Rob," she said, her voice flat. "Jennifer, how are you?" She laughed bitterly. "How do you think? I'm on probation, working minimum wage, living in a dump, and I can't contact the man I love. The man you love is a serial killer and fraud artist. He's innocent, and when my probation ends next year, I'll be able to prove it." "You're going to go back to him?" "Of course. He's waiting for me. We write through intermediaries. He still loves me." I stared at her, this brilliant woman who'd thrown away everything for a delusion. "Jennifer, he never loved you. He used you. He's probably using other women right now the same way. You never understood what we have. I understand that you destroyed your life for a fantasy. And you destroyed our marriage because you couldn't accept my choices." "Your choices? You mean lying, stealing, and having an emotional affair with a convicted killer?" "I mean following my heart and standing by an innocent man." There was no point arguing. Jennifer was too far gone, too invested in her delusion to ever admit the truth. To acknowledge Marcus's guilt and manipulation would mean acknowledging she'd thrown away her life for nothing. "I have to go," I said. "Take care of yourself, Jennifer." "Tell Sarah I said hello," she replied with bitter sarcasm. "I heard you married a prosecutor. How fitting. Someone else who puts innocent people in prison." I walked away without responding. There was nothing left to say. The next year, Jennifer's probation ended. True to her word, she immediately resumed contact with Marcus Stone. I heard about it through Detective Walsh, who'd kept tabs on the situation. She's visiting him again, sending money she doesn't have. Took out a payday loan to fund his latest appeal. Can't you do something? She's not breaking any laws now. Stupidity isn't illegal. But karma wasn't done with Jennifer. 6 months after resuming contact with Marcus, she discovered he'd been corresponding with 3 other women the entire time she'd been on probation. One of them, a wealthy widow from Connecticut, had been funding his appeals far more generously than Jennifer ever could. The news came out when the widow published a book about her experience being manipulated by Marcus Stone. She included excerpts from his letters, many identical to ones he'd sent Jennifer. The widow had seen through his act when he asked her to put her house up as collateral for his legal defense fund. Jennifer, confronted with undeniable proof of Marcus's ongoing deception, had a complete breakdown. She was hospitalized for psychiatric evaluation after being found at the prison, screaming at the guards to let her see Marcus, to let her explain, to let her prove she was the one who truly loved him. The psychiatric hold turned into a longer stay when doctors diagnosed her with delusional disorder and severe depression. The court appointed a conservator to manage what little money she had left, preventing her from sending any more to Marcus. Marcus Stone, meanwhile, moved on to his next victims without a backward glance. The widow's book had warned many women away, but there were always new ones, drawn to danger and believing they could be the one to save him. I got one last update about Jennifer from her sister, who reached out to apologize for not believing me during the divorce. She's in a state facility now, she told me over coffee. Long-term psychiatric care. She still insists Marcus loves her, that everyone else is lying. The doctors say she may never accept reality. The delusion has become her entire identity. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I hadn't wanted this for Jennifer. Don't be. You tried to warn her. We all did, eventually. But she chose him over everyone who actually cared about her. She chose a fantasy over reality. That was 5 years ago. I haven't heard anything about Jennifer since. Sarah and I have 2 kids now, a house in a good school district, a life built on truth and trust. Sometimes I think about those 3 years of lies, the Saturday hospital visits, the $50,000 stolen in service of a delusion. But mostly, I think about how lucky I was to discover the truth when I did. Jennifer had been willing to lie indefinitely, to build our entire life on a foundation of deception. If Susan hadn't noticed those JPay transactions, I might have spent decades married to someone in love with a serial killer. Marcus Stone is still in prison, will die there eventually. He still has women who write to him, visit him, send him money. He'll keep manipulating them until his last breath because that's who he is, a predator who feeds on lonely, vulnerable women seeking purpose and meaning. Jennifer found purpose in trying to save him. It cost her everything: her marriage, her money, her freedom, her sanity, her life as she'd known it. The saddest part is that she'll probably never understand that she was never special to him, never loved by him, never anything more than a source of money and narcissistic supply. The revenge I'd wanted through the divorce seems quaint now, compared to what Jennifer did to herself. I wanted her to pay back the money, to face consequences for her deception. But she created her own consequences far worse than anything a court could impose. She built her own prison, brick by brick, lie by lie, visit by visit, until she was as trapped as Marcus Stone himself. Sarah asked me once if I ever regretted not trying harder to save Jennifer from herself. She made her choice, I told her. She chose him over me, over reality, over everything. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. But you loved her once. I loved who I thought she was. But that woman either never existed or disappeared the moment she decided a serial killer was worth lying to her husband for. The Jennifer I married wouldn't have done what she did. That Jennifer was gone long before I found those bank statements. It's been 8 years now since that Saturday when Susan discovered the JPay transactions. 8 years since my world turned upside down. But I landed right side up, built something better and truer than what I'd had before. Jennifer is probably still in that psychiatric facility, still believing in Marcus Stone's innocence, still waiting for him to prove his love for her, still choosing the serial killer over everyone else, even if now that choice exists only in her fractured mind. Sometimes the best revenge isn't something you do to someone who betrayed you. Sometimes it's just stepping back and letting them face the natural consequences of their choices. Jennifer chose Marcus Stone over her marriage, her family, her friends, her financial security, her freedom, and ultimately her sanity. She chose a serial killer over everything good in her life. And in the end, that choice was revenge enough.